All right, fourth grade. Today we're going to read The Bicycle Man by Alan Say. The Bicycle Man by Alan Say. When I was a small boy, I went to a school in the South Island of Japan. The schoolhouse stood halfway up a tall green mountain. It was made of wood, and the wood was gray with age. When a strong wind blew, the trees made the sound of waves, and the building creaked like an old sailing ship. From the playground, we could see the town, the ships in the harbor, the shining sea. One fine spring day, we had our sports day. All the children and teachers were out in the playground long before the first bell rang. Did everybody remember to bring a headband? Asked Mrs. Morita. She was our first grade teacher. Eagerly, we showed her our headbands. They were red on one side and white on the other. Remember, we're on the red team, she told us. So, back when this story took place, they used headbands like we use colored shirts in gym to show which team we're on. They used the headbands, and that was how they identified what team they were on. We swept the playground with all the brooms in the school. We tied colored flags and streamers to bamboo poles. We drew white lines on the ground with powdered chalk. Our parents came carrying tiered lunchboxes and kettles filled with tea. They spread their straw mats and sat around the oval track. When everything was ready, Mrs. Morita rang the bell. It was 9 o'clock. The principal stood on the platform and said, "Parents, children, my fellow teachers, let us remember that we are gathered here in the spirit of sportsmanship. Whether we win or whether we lose, let us enjoy ourselves." We cheered and clapped our hands. The youngest children were the first to race. We lined up 6 at a time at the starting line. Ready, set, go! Mr. Oka, the art teacher, boomed at us. We first graders leaped out and dashed around the track. Parents and teachers ran alongside of us, yelling encouragement. The older children waved flags and headbands and shouted at the top of their lungs until the mountain echoed the noise like rumbling thunder. So right now, as we're listening to the story and looking at the pictures, what is the mood of Sports Day? So how does Sports Day feel right now? What's the mood? What are you gathering from Sports Day right now, currently? Since it's just starting, they're just starting the events, how is it making you feel, or how is it making the story feel? The winners went up to the judges' table and received prizes from the principal. The prizes were wrapped in white paper and tied with gold threads. Inside, there were oranges and rice cakes and pencils. By the time the 6th graders finished running, it was lunchtime, and that was the best part of the sports day. My mother had cooked for 2 days, preparing the good things to eat. The layers of lacquered boxes held pickled melon rinds and egg rolls, spiced rice and fish cakes. There were apples and peaches and sweets of all sorts. So I want you to look real closely at this picture. So look at this picture and look at what their food is in, how they're sitting on the floor to eat. Nobody's standing up and eating. I want you to understand that this is because they're from a different culture. So in Japan, it is normal to sit on your legs while you eat. Alright, and they're using chopsticks to eat with, not regular forks. They all have these sandal-looking shoes. In the afternoon, we had the tug of war and piggyback races. After that, the grown-ups had a race of their own. Parents and teachers paired up and tied their ankles together with headbands and hopped around the oval. We screamed with delight when they stumbled and fell on top of one another. We were cheering. Mrs. Morita and someone's father when a hush fell on the playground. We stopped moving and talking and stared toward the gate. Two strangers were leaning over the fence and watching us. They were American soldiers. One of them was a white man with bright hair like fire, and the other man had a face as black as the earth. They wore dark uniforms with neckties, soft caps on their heads, and red stripes on their sleeves. They had no guns. "Look how black he is. Look at that red hair," he whispered. The war had been only over for a short while, not even 1 year. American soldiers had a base in the harbor, but we had never seen them in our mountain. I felt afraid. So just with the turning of a page, how has the mood shifted and changed? We were feeling really excited, we were feeling happy, energetic, energized, ready to go. Now how has it changed, and what has changed it? The foreigners smiled and waved at us. When the black man cleared the fence and came toward us, we all drew back and stared. He was the tallest man I had ever seen, and his clothes, such sharp creases, and his shoes shone like no other polished metal. The soldier walked in huge strides toward the school entrance, where the principal's bicycle stood. He pointed at the bicycle and turned to the judges' table. The principal stood up slowly. "He wants the bicycle," someone said. "Maybe he doesn't know what it is." "No, he wants to ride it." The principal walked up to the American and bowed. He looked like a small boy greeting a giant. The tall man gave a deep bow, almost bumping heads with the principal. We started to giggle. We watched them talk to each other with their hands. The principal pointed at the bicycle, then at the man, and nodded. "Yes, you are welcome to ride my bicycle," he seemed to say. The soldier put the palms of his hands together and smiled. The man took the bicycle by the handlebar, kicked up the kickstand, and rolled it out to the center of the playground. He motioned to us to make room, and then called his friend. The other American was nearly as tall as the black man. He took off his cap and saluted us with a big bow. We giggled and bowed back. The strangers spoke to each other and nodded. So at this point in the story, what do we think the soldiers are planning on doing? Are they up to no good? Are they actually going to help? What do we think they're going to plan on doing? The black man took off his jacket and handed it to the white man. Then he hoisted a long leg over the bicycle and began to pedal it around and around in a widening circle. His friend waved the jacket like a flag and cheered him to go faster. Suddenly, the rider yanked on the handlebar and lifted the front wheel off the ground. "Oh, look," we stirred. "How can he ride like that?" "What an athlete," said the art teacher. The red-haired man was the ringmaster. He ran alongside of the bicycle and shouted encouragement. The rider went around and round with only one wheel, zigzagging this way and that. We were amazed. Then he rode backwards. He sat on the bicycle with his body turned around. He had to twist his neck to see where he was going. He worked his long arms and legs like a huge dancing spider. We howled with wonder. The man rode backwards and forwards, twirling the front wheel like a spinning gyroscope. He shouted something to the ringmaster, who grasped the carrier and began to push as fast as he could. Then he let go. The bicycle shot forward with great speed. The rider stood up on the pedals and, leaning on the handlebar, put both his feet up. On the carrier, there he was, in the air. His cap flew off and his necktie fluttered in the wind. He seemed to be flying free, cruising like an enormous dragonfly. "Oh no! Oh, oh!" we exclaimed, and gasped in turn. When the bicycle finally came to a stop, the playground roared with wild clapping of hands and shouting. The rider panted, heaving and laughing. The ringmaster rushed up to him and lifted him in a bear hug. We mobbed around them, jumping and yelling. The principal struggled through the crowd, and the black man reached out to him. They gripped each other's arms like old friends. The principal raised his arms to quiet us down. He took the soldiers' hands and led them to the platform. There he whispered something to Mrs. Morita, and she brought him the largest box from the prize table. The principal stood on the platform and held out the box to the Americans. He looked like the emperor awarding a great champion. The bicycle rider received the gift with both hands and lifted it high above his head. Then he turned to the crowd. "Arigatou, arigatou," he said. "Thank you, thank you." The whole school bowed to him and shouted for joy. The Americans put their caps on and walked out the gate with their prize. They went down the mountain, arm in arm, waving and laughing. We followed them with our eyes until they disappeared around the bend in the road. The end. So now you're going to read some questions in our Google form, and you're going to answer them the best of your ability after listening to this story. All right, fourthies.